Good day, everyone. Today, I will be presenting a culturally rooted and participatory framework designed to evaluate advocacy, communication, and social mobilization, or ACSM programs in the Philippine context. Sorry if it looks like I find it hard to talk. I just had my tooth extracted yesterday before recording this video. Our framework is called KAPWA, inspired by the core values of Sikolohiyang Pilipino and community-based approaches. The term kapwa is deliberate. In Filipino psychology, kapwa represents the concepts of shared identity, the idea that we are all interconnected. So at the heart of effective ACSM efforts is kapwa, the recognition that we are not separate from the communities we serve, but part of a shared humanity. So when we honor kapwa in our advocacy work, our interventions become not just programs, but shared journeys of change. So this framework may allow us to move beyond Western-centric evaluation tools and instead use one that resonates with our local realities, emotions, and values. So rather than just measuring outputs like how many people attended a seminar or how many flyers were distributed, this framework helps us ask deeper, more meaningful questions. Was the community genuinely engaged? Was the messaging respectful and relatable? Or did real change take place, both internally and externally? So let's now go through the framework one component at a time. First, we have kamalayan sa konteksto, which means awareness of context. This component focuses on the community context, understanding their history, culture, struggles, and values before we intervene. This is grounded in pakikiramdam or our cultural tendency to fill out the situation. Listening not just to words but to silences, nonverbal cues, and the rhythm of local life. So using local idioms, symbols, and beliefs to ensure interventions are not imposed, it makes sure that it is aligned with the people's lived experiences. So, for example, if you're launching a family planning campaign in a deeply religious community, it would be inappropriate to frame the message using purely medical terms. You need to understand religious sensitivities, existing beliefs about motherhood, and gender roles. So, here we ask, was a participatory community diagnosis or needs assessment done? Were indigenous knowledge and local realities understood before planning? Or did the program reflect the historical and cultural background of the people? Next is Alianza at Action. So here, we focus on the strength and quality of partnerships. So who do we work with? Were they truly engaged or just listed for formality? This is where pakikipagkapwa and damayan comes in. Building mutual engagement and solidarity, not dependency. So it helps in evaluating the strength and authenticity of community alliances, including pagsama or joining, pagtulong or helping, and pagkakapit-bisig or solidarity. So moreover, it will promote respect and will elevate local leadership. So for example, for the barangay captains, health workers, youth leaders, it will look at them as equal partners. So for example, in an anti-smoking campaign in urban poor communities, it makes a difference if the tanod, the health workers, and the sari-sari store owners were involved in discouraging youth from buying cigarettes. So during this component, we need to ask ourselves, were key local leaders and groups involved in meaningful ways? Did the program create or strengthen collective action? Or were alliances reciprocal and sustainable or purely instrumental? Third is pakikipag-ugnayan at pakikisangkot, a component that assesses the depth of community participation. So this goes beyond asking, did people attend the program? Instead, we ask, were they involved in making decisions? Were they empowered? It echoes the value of pakikilahok, not just participating possibly, but being co-creators of the initiative. It goes beyond tokenistic consultation. We can measure whether the community was involved in design, implementation, and reflection. It will also help in breaking down the us versus them boundaries between the implementers and the community. So think of a nutrition campaign where mothers aren't just given recipes but actually co-develop meal plans using gulay sa bakuran and lutong bahay examples. So that's participation in action. So the evaluator should ask, did the community actively participate in planning, implementation, and evaluation? Were marginalized group given voice and leadership opportunities? Or did the program foster a sense of shared responsibility and agency? Fourth is wasto at makataong komunikasyon. We now look at the quality of the communication. Was it appropriate? Was it respectful? Was it empowering? So this is where the C in ACSM, communication, comes into sharp focus. In Sikolohiyang Pilipino, pagpapakatao reminds us that communication is not just about transferring information. It's about speaking with, not speaking down to. We need to assess whether communication materials are culturally sensitive, inclusive, and framed in ways that empower rather than patronize. So, a poster in English with technical jargon might check a donor box, but will it speak to a nanay in Eastern Samar? Probably not. A dramatized radio segment or a mural in the local dialect might work better compared to technical jargons. So we need to ask the following questions. Were messages culturally appropriate? Is it inclusive? Is it empowering? Were local languages, metaphors, and communication styles used? Did the community resonate with the narratives and the format used? Finally, we have Aral at Bunga. This evaluates the outcomes and learnings, both measurable and experiential. This is where we assess the outcomes, but not only in terms of numbers. We include both visible outputs, intangible outcomes like changed attitudes, greater empathy, or stronger community unity. So here, we ask not only what changed, but also what did we in the community learn and how is that knowledge being shared or applied. So this includes behavior change, but also emotional and social transformation. So here, we assess what behavior or system level changes occurred, where the fruits of the program felt and shared with the community, what lessons were learned, and how are they being documented or applied moving forward. Now that we've covered each component of the KAPWA framework, let's drill down to the practical tools we might use or we can use to gather evidence for every component. Think of this as your on-the-ground lenses, methods that translate the big ideas of kapwa, pakikiramdam, and community ownership into concrete idea and datas. So, on kamalayan sa konteksto, we begin with community mapping. It is often done with a Manila paper, markers, and the resident themselves. We ask them to draw landmarks, social hubs, and even unsafe zones. The map reveals physical resources and hidden power dynamics. Next, we run a timeline exercise. We need to lay out a length of rope, mark major local events, floods, road construction, barangay elections, and encourage participants to add personal milestones. This tells us how history shapes today's attitude. Finally, we hold FGDs in a familiar setting. Sari-sari stores, tropahan, corner works, so people feel at ease sharing loob or their inner sentiments. We ask open-ended questions like, kailan kayo huling nag-health mission dito at kumusta ang karanasan? So together, these tools answer, have we felt the pulse of the community before acting? For evaluating alyansa at aksyon, we start with a network mapping workshop. We use post-it. They become the stakeholders, the strings link collaborators. we will instantly see who is central, maybe the Women's Association versus isolated actors who needs bridging. We can also run a coalition analysis next, wherein we rate each partner on influence, interest, and trust. So this flags where to invest relationship building. Then we can also distribute partner reflection diaries, one-page sheets that they fill monthly, describing successes, tensions, and recommendation. So these narratives undercover whether alliances are authentic or merely transactional. For pakikisangkot, a participation tracking matrix lists every activity down the rows and stakeholder groups across the columns. We use check marks and color codes to show who designed, who facilitated, and who merely attended. So we will spot tokenism fast. Next is we can encourage reflective journals, even just voice notes on Messenger, where volunteers recount highs, lows, and aha moments after each session. So this highlights shifts in confidence or leadership. Sorry. Finally, we collect most significant change stories. We ask, since this project started, what's the biggest change you've seen? We can record, transcribe, and have the community choose the story that best represents collective transformation. Now, to check wasto and makataong komunikasyon, we can run a media content analysis. We can review posters, radio spots, FB reels. We can count local language use, inclusivity of images, and presence of empowerment versus fear appeals. We can follow it with message pre-testing. We can share draft materials with small groups, whether the tanols, the grandmothers, the teens, and note eye tracking, laughter, or puzzled faces. And then we can just revise accordingly. So we can cap it with the pakiramdam interviews or short one-on-ones asking, anong pakiramdam mo sa mensahe? We can probe emotions and perceive respect. If they say, parang pangtaas lang yan eh, hindi para sa amin, we know now that revision is needed and necessary. For Aral and Bunga, we can implement a knowledge attitude practice survey or the KAP survey before and after the program to quantify shifts. Example, the percentage now comfortable discussing HIV testing. So we can complement numbers with the change story circles, wherein we gather 6 to 8 participants, pass a talking stick, and let each narrate personal change. We can also record this as chapters in our Aklat of Collective Wisdom. Finally, we can close with a participatory evaluation workshop. So stakeholders review findings, vote on which outcomes matter most, and co-design next step. This turns lessons into actions, ensuring the bunga or the fruits are replanted for the next cycle. So these tools keep our evaluations grounded, relational, and actionable. They transform abstract principles like KAPWA, pakikiramdam, and pakikilahok into concrete evidence that donors respect and communities trust. So we need to remember, we need to choose tools that match the community's comfort and context. A high-tech online survey may work in Makati, but in Upland Benguet, a story circle by the rice terraces might reveal far richer insights. So by mixing quantitative rigor with qualitative depth, we honor both the measurable and the meaningful. To close, the KAPWA framework offers us more than just a tool for measurement. It provides a culturally grounded philosophy of care and connection in how we design and evaluate our ACSM programs. So by rooting our evaluation in KAPWA, we move away from purely transactional assessments. Instead, we ask, did we respect their dignity? Did we listen deeply? Did we walk with the community, not ahead of them? So this framework values both quantifiable outcomes like knowledge increase or behavior change, and qualitative insights like pakikiramdam, pagbabago ng loob, and renewed hope. So when we use tools that encourage storytelling, reflection, and community-led interpretation, evaluation becomes not just a judgment, but a form of collective learning. So in a world of quick checklists and top-down reporting, I think KAPWA reminds us that real change happens when we evaluate with the people, not just about them. And as we continue our advocacy, communication, and social mobilization work, I think we should remember that hindi lang resulta ang mahalaga, kundi ang relasyon, ang pag-unlad ng loob, at ang pagsama-samang pagkatuto ng mga tao. So here is the reference list based on the concepts, theories, and sources mentioned in the presentation. So as we continue to design, implement, and evaluate programs for our communities, may we always remember that meaningful change doesn't come from above, but grows from within when we walk beside the people and share in their journey. So thank you, and I hope you find Kapwa helpful in your own community efforts.